remote attendance was that you guys are really good at showing up 30 seconds after the meeting starts. So you could watch, I would open up the meeting, I try to open up the meeting 15 minutes, 10 minutes in advance, and there would be nobody here. And then at the 30 mark, there would be 2 people. And by 35, there would be, like 50 or 60 people. This was in a slightly bigger class. So I guess not having to walk to class makes you all much more precise with your timings. All right, who do we have here today? We do have Professor Makis. I'm not seeing, I think Hunter Harris said he was not going to be here, and there's Nia. So I think as far as your instructional staff, we are here. Hopefully we have a lot of the mentors as well. So let's get started. I'm going to kick it off. Today's June 11th. We are starting to move into things. What we want to do today is we want to wrap up our proposals. They are due, I'll talk about this a little bit, they are due on Monday. We want to make sure everybody has a team. We want to make sure everybody's poised to get working. And then we'll introduce what you're going to be doing next week, which is starting off with some your status updates so that we can kind of keep track of where you are. So let's get started here. There we go. Some interesting bits. These are some things that came in this week into my email or elsewhere. Somehow I didn't quite get that. The link is a little bit obscured, but when you get the slides, you can click on the link. I think I have it set up so that you can click on the link, and certainly the QR code should work. Red Hat has a summit. This is the second half of the summit. They actually ran one about a month ago. Red Hat is a big open source company. If you're not aware of the way they work, what they did was they took a Linux distribution. They were one of the first to do this successfully commercially. They took a Linux, and this was like way back, back in the old days, dinosaurs and everything. They took a Linux distribution, which was free, burned it onto a CD. I don't believe it was a DVD at those times. In fact, I'm sure it wasn't a DVD at those times. Put it in a box with a lot of air, and sold it. And people bought it. That's despite the fact that Linux is absolutely free, and you could actually get it from a number of places for free. But what they offered that other places didn't was they offered support. So you could buy a Red Hat distribution, a Red Hat disk, and then you could call them up and get help on setting things up or using it or whatever. And mainly what they're selling at that point is support. Now you can go on, you can download Red Hat Linux for free, or you can buy the Red Hat enterprise license. And again, what they're actually selling you there is they're selling you free support. So it's a really interesting business model. We will pay you for something free, and it turns out that in general, if you're a business, the cost of something like a software license is not really the driving factor. The availability of support is the driving factor. So one of the ways you can actually make money off of open source software is just by offering consulting or offering support for big projects. You don't want to use simple projects, because simple projects anybody can do. You want to take big projects that are hard to understand and help people use them. There's a place up in Clifton Park called Kitware. I used to work there for a long time, and they do essentially that. They take something called ITK and VTK. It's open source projects for visualizing data and for doing segmentation and registration of data, primarily video data from medical imaging and other sources. They have a bunch of other projects too, all of them supported by open source, but those are the two that I worked with. And they offer consulting services. They build things for the federal government. They offer consulting services to other companies. We worked with a lot of drug developing companies and other imaging companies like GE and Siemens and such. And because the libraries they use are powerful but also complex, they can make, I think they're up to 125 people now, just supporting open source licenses. Nowhere near the $4 billion that IBM paid for Red Hat, but it is certainly at least a model, if not, it's a model for making money off of open source. And if you look at any of the open source licenses, that's one of the things that is explicitly required of an open source license, is that if you are releasing your code with an open source license, you are allowing other people to make money off of it, which is, I think, kind of a cool thing. Hopefully you figure out how to make money first. That's even cooler. But you are, and you can do the same thing with anybody else's open source software. If it's truly open source, if it's with an OSI approved license, there's no way for them to stop you making money. They may be able to limit the ways, if you take a GNU licensed piece of code and you add stuff to it, when you distribute that code, you have to distribute your changes as well. But as we can see with this whole Red Hat Linux thing, the availability of the source code is not necessarily a barrier to becoming a $4 billion company. So if any of you become a $4 billion company, I would appreciate a note. Let me know that, because that would be really cool. But other than that, there's nothing else that is required, as long as you comply with the various licenses. Anyway, enough on that. There's another kind of interesting little conference that goes on every year. They have a All Things Open conference in the fall, and they have something else in the spring, and they have little get-togethers, little meetups every month or two. But it's called All Things Open. Registration for it opens on July 13th. The last couple of years, they've offered free registration just because. Nobody's been able to gather anyway, so they've been doing it virtually, and it's been free for virtual attendees. It's a really interesting little conference if you want to know some things that go on, if you want to have people talk to you about their open source tools. It's really low barrier, and if they again offer it free for people doing it virtually, you can pick and choose what you attend, and you can do it for free. It's not a very expensive conference anyway, and I think it is in Boston every year. Anyway, it's really I've gone to 3 of the open ones. I haven't made it to one of the in-person ones, but it's kind of my goal to make it to the next in-person one. So again, a really interesting conference. And then finally, and this one is a little bit probably less applicable to you guys, and maybe more to some of our recent graduates. But Catherine Murtaugh, she's from the class of '87 at RPI, has reached out to us. We get these periodically, and what you'll see is that in general, I post these into the Opportunities channel on Discord. It's one of the reasons we ask you to subscribe or to monitor the Opportunities channel on Discord. We get things for internships. We get things for job openings. Harvard Management Company are looking to hire somebody, and if you click on the little position link, what you'll find is that will take you to an application where they talk about the things they want from people, summary responsibilities and required skills. So one of the things you'll find out is that becoming a full stack web developer is pretty lucrative right now. And I think this class is one of the places where you will, or this RCOS is one of the places where you can actually get that experience. We don't require you to do it, but there are a lot of people who do full stack development as part of RCOS, and come out of it with some fairly nice products. So if you're interested, if you have some experience, you should consider that. I don't know if they're offering internships as well, but I did promise I would just kind of pass that along. So it is now passed along twice. All right. Is that all we had? Yes, okay. So those are the 3 little interesting tidbits. The next part, again, just to make sure everybody has it, we have a syllabus. I have it in the LMS. We also have it in a more readable format online as part of the handbook, along with a quick summary. I'm going to, I think this is the second time I announced it. As I announce these a couple of times, I start moving them out of the main presentation. But we're going to get out of here well in advance of 3:35. I think today the target is a little after 2. You know what? I forgot to turn on the No, I did turn on the recording. Boy, I'm good. Yeah, I think our target is a little after 2 today, and that's including giving you a pre-look at what we need to do next week. But I'll hang around here until at least 3:33 or so, maybe a little shorter. So if you're going to come at exactly 3:30, please, DM me or something so I know you're coming. But I'll hang out here and I'll leave the WebEx open until about then. And if you guys have any questions, that will be my office hours. So we'll find a way to work with you. We'll set up a DM, a private Discord channel if we need to talk, whatever we need to do. But I will kind of be here and make these my office hours. And Evan, Professor Makis, has been hanging out with me as well. We've had some really good talks. What we haven't had are any really good talks with students. That'll come. In fact, we're gonna make you guys next week start talking with us one-on-one, or at least team on us. I did manage to get through all of Rainbow grades up through the bonus session that was given by Nia on Wednesday. So that should be all there. I believe I pushed it. I should have checked to make sure I pushed it. But all of your grades so far should be up to date. So this is the 6th class. That means you had the possibility of 5 attendances and 1 bonus session. Nothing else so far. So it's pretty low point values. What I am going to do is I'm going to give you till a week from today to correct anything that's wrong. Particularly things to look at is if you started the class late, I'll give you credit for attendances that happened before you joined the class. So let me know about that. If we missed your name in the bonus session, in the workshop, that's a manual process. I'm certain that Nia gave me the right names. I may have made a mistake along the way. So let us know. We can correct those. Just let me know as soon as possible. Check it out. Make sure your attendances in venue are showing up, because I know there were some issues with some people, and this is the time of the year when, if you come to me at the end of the semester and say, I was doing my attendance wrong every class for the last 22 classes, at some point you should have checked, right? And should have gotten in touch with me. Now is the time to check. Make sure everything's going right. If you're having problems, we can help you out. We can give you credit for things that maybe 10 weeks from now we're going to be less inclined to take as many excuses or as small excuses. We did get one more mentor, Ethan Joseph has joined us as well, so that's really cool. We're going to hold, just for those of you who are mentors, we've been holding a meeting in Discord. There's a mentors channel at, I believe it's 4 p.m. on Monday. Nia, that's correct, right? Can one of the mentors? Okay, I've got some head shaking here. So cool. So we'll make sure that you're there. We just talk about what we're doing for the week. Last one was pretty easy because we weren't really grading anything yet. We'll start next week. Looking at both your proposals and at status updates. So if you're interested, I took down the survey or the form, I think. But if you're interested, just talk to me. We can get you up to speed, and there's room for a couple more. But I think with 8, we have about 24 or 25 projects so far, so we can probably handle it if we need to. But there are always room for a couple more people if you're interested in passing on knowledge, and you've done this before. Which brings us to the next piece. Everybody is required to either give or attend at least 1 bonus session. Mentors, they're allowed to attend, they're encouraged to attend, they're required to give, which is maybe the biggest barrier on being a mentor. It's if you're shy in public speaking, you are not going to get a better audience than this. You can talk about technical things that you know about. You can pick your topic, and you're going to have a friendly audience. So it's a really good place, if you're thinking about this, if public speaking bothers you, if you think you want to go into teaching, these are all very good reasons to give a workshop. Let me know. The form's still there. I believe it's still open. If not, I'll open it up again. We're open. All the mentors should be doing one. And if you're not a mentor and you want to do one, you are welcome to do one as well. We've had some really good ones the last couple of, we've had a lot of good ones since the start of RCOS, and I see no reason why that won't continue. We do have 4 defined already. I would like to get, let's talk about what we have. So far, Nia has given one on Git. That was given 2 days ago. I believe, I don't know if that was recorded or not. Nia, do you know if it's?
It was. If you refresh the slide, I put a link to the YouTube.
Ah, awesome. So if you show up there, technically, you can show up there at one of these meetings and sit in, and as long as you convince the person giving the workshop that you are there and paying attention, you should all be good. If, however, you watch the video, you have to tell me or Nia or whomever gave the presentation something interesting about the presentation that you learned. So the barrier is lower if you just want to spend your time watching it than it is if you watch it online and then ask to get credit. So just keep that in mind. If you want to get credit for Nia's Git presentation workshop, you can see it on YouTube. Go there, check it out, send us a DM or an email, and be prepared to answer a couple questions, or what I like to do is have you give me a few points that you found particularly interesting or useful, and then we can give you credit for that as well. I think right now there are 10 people with credit. If I'm remembering correctly, that seems to be about the number. And I did get that in, like I said, in the Rainbow Grades as well. Hunter, our other coordinator who's working this summer, is going to do his on Wednesday, 6/16 at 5. It's going to be an intro to Dockerizing all the things. I like the title. If you're not familiar with Docker, Docker is a way of encapsulating an entire environment that allows you to do things like generate one deployment environment and then allow anybody to use it regardless of whether they're on a Windows machine or a Linux machine or OS X, etc. We actually had some people working last semester on making this run on some of IBM's more advanced architectures as well, so I'm not sure how far they got it, but it's a really cool way of both developing and launching products, so they work across platforms, and Hunter will tell you everything you need to know to get started. I recommend for our projects as they become more complex, for example, if you're doing full stack and you start running into this escalating interdependency of requirements, specific version levels, etc., it starts making it hard for the people working on the project to keep up or for new people to come on. Making a Docker that encapsulates all of that is a really good way to work and gets you a long way toward getting people up and running in the first couple of weeks of class rather than just before the end of class. Bill Nye, and it's not that Bill Nye, he's our Bill Nye, he's the better Bill Nye because he's part of RCOS. Bill is going to give a talk on AWS. So if you want to generate your Docker and then run it on AWS, these are two good ones to give. And fortunately, they will be almost back to back. Bill's going to do his, I believe, at 8 p.m. That was p.m., right? Bill, you here? I believe that's 8 p.m. I can't believe any of you would get up at 8 a.m. So 8 p.m. on Wednesday. So you can go to Nia's, grab some dinner, and then go out to Bill's, and you will know both how to do, go to Hunter's and then get some dinner and go out to Bill's, and you'll know how to both generate a Docker and then run it on AWS. And Bill is going to do it in his WebEx room. The link is there. The fourth one isn't until the end of June, but since I only had 4, I threw all of them in. James Crovo is going to do Redis plus Nasfac. Nasfac is the RCOS project that James is working on. It's going to be 6:30 on Wednesday, and that is 7:30 p.m. as well, I believe. And again, this is going to be in James's meeting room. But the first 2 are next week. So next Wednesday, 2 of them will be going off. James's isn't until the end of June, so that's cool. It'll give you a little bit of a break while still giving us good coverage through the semester. We should, like I said, we expect at least 4 more of these. I am interested, if anybody wants to give a licensing talk, I have some slides on licensing you can use. It would be good if you understood a little bit about licensing, about open source licensing, but it's a really interesting subject, and you all are going to have to pick an open source license. Well, any new project is going to have to pick an open source license for their project, so knowing a little bit about it is actually pretty useful. So, if any of the mentors in particular who've been with us a couple of semesters want to talk about that, we do have slides on that. Otherwise, perhaps Evan or I will have to go and do one. Again, this is the 3rd week, so we're right here at the beginning of the Execute On project, and the first thing you're going to do in executing on your project is making a plan for how this semester is going to go. So hopefully you are all well into the process of making that plan, and that plan is called what? The project proposal. Come on, guys. You got to keep up, so the project proposal is due Monday. Hopefully you're all well into that and have a plan for this semester. Okay, so you should have picked your project and you should be working on your proposal. If you haven't picked your project, and as far as I know, there are 3 of you out there who I don't have projects for yet, or who haven't joined a group. So if you haven't joined a group, please reach out to the groups on Discord. If you're having problems, if you don't know how to join a group, if you just kind of delayed and now you can't get into a group, but you need me to add you manually, all of that is possible, but we do need to have everybody working on a project. Don't let it drag out too much longer. This is week 3. We're 25% of the way through the semester, believe it or not. So we do need you guys to be putting in some effort and kind of making some progress going forward. I do still have a list of all of the available projects. I think that anyone on that list, that isn't marked full is available. Certainly they're worth reaching out to and starting a conversation. We've got a plethora, or an embarrassment of riches this semester. We have a lot more projects than I expected for the summer. I think right now there are 25 of them defined, maybe 26. So of that 26, there has to be one that interests you. We cover a lot of ground, from electronic music to conservation, identifying elephants, to hardware opening doors automatically off your smartphone. Monitoring energy outputs, energy used, data science. Just look down the list. There's a lot going on. So there's no excuse for not finding something you like, and you do have to do a little bit of legwork to go out and connect with somebody and get on the list. And again, I think there's only 3 of you left in that position. These were the ones that a few days ago looked like they didn't have any conversation around, or had contacted me about needing more people. So these may be a place to start if you're looking. But again, take a look at all the stuff that's gone on. We have a lot of projects, a lot of proposals. You should be able to find something interesting. This was a mistake that was supposed to be deleted. That was from last semester. All right. So getting started. Oops, that's not what I wanted. This is just, again, we've talked about this before. This is a quick rundown of your projects. We expect a paragraph saying what your project is about. This should be your overall vision. It should end, the last sentence should be, and then world domination or something similar. What's your end game? What do you hope to actually achieve? Then kind of tone it down and tell us what you're going to achieve by the end of the summer. So again, one paragraph, overall goals, so we understand in more general terms what you're trying to do. Think of it as an elevator pitch. If I had to tell somebody, if I had to convince Professor Stewart that your project was worth continuing, what would I tell him you were trying to do? And then tell me how far you're going to get this semester. What part of that is your intent to accomplish? And then about 2 or 3 milestones per person, per student on the project. That just kind of gives marching orders or a list of concrete things that need to be done so that you don't have to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and coming up with stuff. There are examples available. If you go to RCOS, these are the examples of projects that, of course, log me in. There we go. If you get asked to do that, you can come into view projects. A lot of these have proposals, so you can come in and look at the proposal from previous years. Right, this is for open circuits. And if you wonder why in alphabetical order open circuits comes first, they cheat, just so you know. They added some unprintable characters or non-printing characters in the front with very low ASCII codes, is my understanding. So, this is, you can see here, this is what they're trying to do. This is, they don't really have any milestones in this. But other than the milestones, this is a really good one, right? Key features, everything from here up is kind of the first paragraph thing. Plans, goals are kind of what they're trying to understand for this semester. And it would be good if we had a few milestones in there. But again, it's nicely done, well defined. And he also has in here all of the people who have worked on this. So if you want to get your name on the Open Circuits roster, here's the way to do it. All right. Okay. And again, this is due Monday. Please get them in. We will take a look at them and we will give you feedback, right? So it's really important that you get them in, even if they're not, even if you're unsure of what to say, we'll help you out. We'll help you develop it. Just get it in. Otherwise, we're delayed in looking at them. And if we're delayed in looking at them, then we're delayed in getting you feedback. And then this just drags on forever. And pretty soon it's like 2035 and the world's ending and you still don't have feedback, which would be bad. You need to have, as you're developing a project, you need to have a repository on GitHub or GitLab or some other open repository place, public repository place. GitHub and GitLab are probably the best options. Depending on how you want to contribute, if you want people to come to be pushing right into your main repository, then you only need one. If you want to do something where people make pull requests into your repository, then probably you'll need one main one, and then everyone on the project will need their own copy of the repository. It's generally termed a fork, so they'll need their own fork. They'll develop in their fork and then do pull requests back to you. If you took the GitHub, hopefully you kind of got that out if you took the GitHub workshop. The repository must have a license. We'll talk about this. Hopefully we'll get a workshop on licensing. But code that's released without a license is not free. Code released without a license is a mousetrap, right? Somebody's released code. If you take it and they can show you took their code, they actually still have copyright even if they make it freely available, right? So they can sue you for copyright infringements. You don't want to do that. Anything you write, by the way, whether you put a copyright on it or not, is covered by copyright. There are a few exceptions to this. One is if you're a contractor for the U.S. government doing paid work, your paid work is considered public domain. That's one of the few places where things get into public domain immediately when they're written. This doesn't hold in countries like Germany, where even something written by the US government and considered public domain in the US is considered copyright of, I don't know whether it's the US government or of the original author in European countries working under the European Union rules, okay? So copyright, when you write it, you have copyright. What a license says is it says how somebody else can use it, can use the stuff that you hold the copyright to, okay? By putting a license on it, you're telling people how they can use it. If you use code that, even on GitHub, that doesn't have a license, then you're using code that is effectively copywritten. And if the person is evil, Dr. Evil or something like that, they could be setting a trap to get everybody in the world to use their piece of code and then sue the world for copyright infringement. I don't know. Seems far-fetched, but that's actually what the law is. So put a license on it. We require an OSI license because I don't want to have to go out and make the decision as to whether your stuff is open source or not. OSI does a good job of vetting these, and there are enough licenses out there that you can find one you can use. I would only look at a handful. MIT, BSD, if you want something permissive, that means people can take your code and use it for any purpose. If you want a little less permissive, if you want something that they have to give back, anything they develop has to be, anything they develop and release has to be made open source as well, then you're talking about the GPL family of licenses. There are some hybrids in there. There's Apache that's good. There's the Mozilla one that's good. But MIT and BSD are really good permissive ones. Any of the GPL family are really good non-permissive ones that require reciprocity. And then Apache, Mozilla, Eclipse Foundation, they fall somewhere in between. GitHub and GitLab both have a license chooser that can help you out. And as long as you're early in your project, when you have everybody who's contributing in a room and you can discuss this, you can change your license easily, as long as you have agreement for all the copyright holders, which is the people who wrote the stuff. After that, it gets a little bit more complicated. We do encourage other documentation, such as a code of conduct or contributions guidelines, contributors guidelines, etc. They're optional. I do want to know that you've thought about them, and this will come up in your presentations. I'm going to want you to tell me what you're doing and why you made the decisions you did, and why you decided not to do some of this stuff. That's fine. But as your projects get more complicated, you're going to want to have these 2 people working together. You probably don't need a contributor's guidelines, right? 15 people working together over multiple semesters and pulling in 3 or 4 outside people, you probably want to have some guidelines so that you don't end up with a morass of unmaintainable code. Just these are the simple things that you need to start thinking about as you run your project. And you also need a README. The proposal works really good for this, so long as you don't write it in docx. Write it in a web-friendly format. Markdown, restructured text, LaTeX, PDF even works kind of. Markdown works really good, or restructured text, because the GitLab and GitHub can both render those really nicely. Okay, that's what you need by Monday, right? It's not that complicated. It looks complicated. It's not. I think I skipped this one. You do actually need to put yourself on RCOS.io and either mark yourself as active or create yourself. Okay, project proposal, entry on RCOS, and a repository on GitHub. We're going to start status updates next week. I started them a week earlier last semester, so I thought maybe I would go through started them today, this part of the meeting 6 last summer. We're going to start next week, but I figured I would just go through this stuff as well because it was already in my template. Once a week, on a Friday, you're going to write a status update that tells everyone what you did that week. Okay? I counted them. I put them all in. There's 8 of them. Okay, starting next week, we have 8 weeks. We actually have 9 weeks. 8 weeks of status updates, 9 weeks in the semester. We're going to drop 3. The idea here is that the status update, some weeks you're not going to do very much. You're going to have tests. You're going to get lost down at the beach or something. You know, forget about your computer. Whatever. We're going to ask you to do 5, right? I'll drop 3. I'm going to recommend that you do some of these early ones, because if you're doing something wrong in it's a 0-1. You either submitted something 0, 1, half 1. 0 you didn't submit, or you submitted essentially something that's fairly meaningless. 1 half you submitted something that could be read as a status update, but you're missing pieces. And 1 you just made the requirement. Okay, so we're not going to heavily grade this. We're not going to do your grammar. We're not going to require you to give us a thesis. We want to know what you're doing. We want to know that you've considered the parts that we told you, and it's 0, 1, half 1. If you submit some of these early ones, you'll know whether you're doing it right and whether you'll continue to get good grades as the semester moves on. Right? It's bad to miss the first 3 and then not have any room for errors. They're really simple. I want a title with your name and a project, okay? Because as I'm reading through these, I don't want to have to remember what project everybody's on, right? So I want to know what the project is on your status update. 1 or 2 short paragraphs on what, the second, so that's part 0. That goes without saying. Second part, 1 or 2 short paragraphs on what you did. I should have changed these numbers. We don't have 80 of you, we have 65 of you and 25 projects. But tell us what you did. You know, and be specific enough so that I can say, okay, I can see how this fits in with what everybody else is doing. If you didn't accomplish anything in a week, tell us. That's okay. We know how these things work, but don't do this every week, because eventually you're going to have to show us what you did, and that means you had to have worked at some point. Second part, what's your plan for next week? Right, so the first part is reporting what was done. The second part is so that when you go in next Monday, when you start working on next week's work, you don't have to think about what am I going to accomplish. You've already put the work in. You know what you're going to work on this week. You're not spinning your wheels. A lot of what we try to get you to do is plan ahead so you're not spending most of your time spinning your wheels. Next goes back to time management. It's the summer. You guys have a lot of stuff going on. We're trying to make sure that you don't lull yourself into a false sense of security and try to do everything in RCOS in 1 week. That doesn't work very well. Again, 1 or 2 short paragraphs. Be specific. You know, this can be slightly shorter than part 1. Most of your writing should actually be in part 1. The next 2 parts are required. They're required because I want to know that you thought about them. They don't have to have anything in them, but I want a heading saying blockers, right? And you can say blockers, no current blockers. That's absolutely acceptable. If you do have blockers, and these are things that we can help you with. So we can't help you with, you know, you caught a cold, and you were in bed for 3 days. You know, that's reflected in what you didn't accomplish that week. But there's not really anything I can do about it. I don't have Flonase or anything. You know, I can't prescribe any of that stuff. We understand these things happen. What we want here is, okay, I was trying to install something on Docker. I was trying to install, I don't know, LaTeX on Docker, and I'm getting this error in my compose file, and I'm seeing lots of postings on Stack Overflow, but no one seems to have a solution to how this works. Okay? Something where us, the coordinators, the mentors, one of us can come in and try to help you out if it's a sustained problem. Okay? Hopefully, you know, a lot of these will say I'm going to talk to X or so and so next week, and we'll get some resolution. But if this goes on a couple of weeks, what I've generally asked is that as we review these with the mentors and the coordinators, if in your group this goes on for more than a week, somebody's stuck on something, make sure you bring it to my attention, and we will try to find somebody to help out. And that's the goal of this, right, is to keep you from being stuck for a long period of time. If you're already looking for help, that's good. Tell us that it's a blocker. Tell us you're looking for help. We'll give you some space unless we actually know the answer. But that's what this is for. And then the fourth part, again, this is largely for you. We want you doing contributions sustained over the semester. So there is a section that we want to be entitled links or, open source contributions, something of those lines. And we want this to be a bulleted list. You don't need, if you want to put text in there, that's fine. You don't need text. We just want URL links that go directly to the different commits you've put into GitHub. They can be documentation commits, code commits, different issues you've opened on GitHub or GitLab or whatever, different wikis you've contributed to, different blogs you've written, just different things that you've done in an open source way that we can then view and give you credit for. We're going to look at these to make sure they're there. The section has to be there. The section can be blank, no commits, no contributions to report this week is perfectly acceptable. Again, don't do it every week, but that's acceptable. We're going to ask you twice during the semester to give us a summary of what you've accomplished to date. The first one is going to be in about 3 weeks, maybe 4. Midpoint of the semester comes up really fast, right? Just go through your old, at that point, just go through your old status updates, pull out all the links, throw them in a document, and report them, right? The goal of this is to keep you working, to make sure that you feel a little uneasy if you don't have links for a couple weeks in a row. We want you to have that angst, I've got to get something done, because we need you contributing over the semester. You get a lot more done and you learn a lot more if you contribute consistently over the semester than if you don't, right? So that's the only thing this is for. We'll do this in the middle of the semester, roughly. We'll do this at the end of the semester. The one at the end of the semester, we're going to actually use for your grade. The middle one is for feedback, right? The one at the end of the semester is going to count. We want you doing this correctly at that time, and that's what we're going to report. That's what we're going to mark you on, is all the stuff that you put in there that you did. Here's a concrete version. This is one I wrote for Project Unknown. I actually have this project in my GitHub. It is exactly what it looks like, absolutely nothing. And again, I could update this to say the 26 projects in RCOS. But right, what I did this week I investigated, I picked, some stats on it. I'm the sole contributor. I wrote the proposal, I created the project, and opened an issue laying out the plan for next week, right? That's what I did. Next week, let's assume I actually wanted to do a project. I'm going to lay out some storyboards, figure out some user cases, figure out how I want the project to proceed. Okay, so this is what I did. What I'm doing next week is planning for further development. And I decided I was going to do a user study as well, so I was going to look at my potential advisor list. Right? There's the first part. There's the week. Forgot that I had all these slides. Real and concrete plan, something that you can say, did I accomplish it or not? Or how much of this did I accomplish? I have no blockers this week, but if I had some, I could put them down there. And this says reach out in the town square, reach out on the help desk or in the summer 2021 community. And then finally, some concrete links. And yes, if we go in here, what we'll find out is the links take me directly to things that I did. One of which is I submitted an issue, right? So there's my issue. And then the other one is I actually did a commit, right? Both of those are valid, and both of those are direct links that go identically to something I did. I'm not clicking here and going to the unknown project, right? That would look like this. Instead, I'm actually going specifically to an open source contribution, a commit that I made, an issue that I opened, etc. Okay? If you do this, you go to the root of the project, and you're on a branch, and there's 30 branches. It's really hard for us to find your commits, right? So go be direct, make it easy for us. We want to give you credit for everything you did. The easier you make it for us to find stuff, the easier it is for us to make sure we didn't miss something. And that's really what this is about. If it was easy for us to make sure we got everything, we wouldn't require you to do this. All right, and I think that is it. And I went 15 minutes beyond what I wanted, but these will get shorter, I promise. We don't have too many new things to introduce past this point. This will be due, we'll have your first one due on Friday. Here's the link to venue. If you guys get there while I'm bringing up the actual check-in, there's our okay, that's covering everything now. Let's that's really funky. I don't know why that's so, there we go. Is that better? There we go. All right, so. This link should take you to venue. This other link should take you to, should be the check-in code. Go ahead. Nia, Evan, did you have anything else? I'm sorry, I should have paused at some point in there. Is there anything else I needed to cover?
I don't think so.
Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Yash, that would be a great idea. I would like to learn a little bit more about Kubernetes. So that would be great. Okay, it looks like it worked for Yash. It looks like Zhang Yu and Owen are still having problems. Anybody else having problems with the code? If you two could DM me, I will do my best to resolve that, or at least I will at least give you credit. The idea is, though, that you need to scan this one in first, right? So you go to this link. Come on. Right, so this should bring you to venue. And then you can come into, I thought it went directly to here, but apparently not. Instructor-led courses, come down to today's thing, and then where exactly is the link to scan this in, guys? I can't see it because I am not, since I'm not a student. I think it's down in here, right? You click on that and you take a picture with your camera. So I think the easiest way is to do this on a mobile device, but it should work from a laptop as well if you like find a way to get the QR code in front of the camera. But yeah, if you continue to have problems, DM me and we will do what we can. Okay, Brian seems to be having problems. So you're actually using the camera icon on this site to do the scanning, right, guys? Are you logged into the logged into venue? I mean, are you part of the class? Okay. All right, well, DM me and I will make sure you get credit for the class, and hopefully we'll take a look at it. I'm not exactly sure what to do about it. But we will investigate. Yeah, DM me on Discord. Professor Turner? I can make it bigger if that helps. I think I can make it bigger. Oops, or I can make it go away. No, there it is. That's as big as I can make it. Yeah, definitely mobile is the better way to go, the better option. All right, I'm going to kill the recording. I'm going to encourage you guys. There were a couple people here last